honores a nuestro segundo y último día de nuestro sexto Congreso de ASOBOLSA y la Bolsa de Valores de Colombia. Para comenzar nuestra jornada tenemos un tema de vital importancia para el desarrollo de la industria bursátil colombiana. Se trata de los retos en el desarrollo de los mercados de riesgo. Una sesión que estoy segura les traerá una nueva visión sobre este tema y sobre su futuro en nuestro país. Nuestro primer conferencista es el doctor Ryoo, director de Mercado de Bonos de la Bolsa de Valores de Corea, quien nos contará sobre el desarrollo de los mercados de bonos corporativos en su país y sobre la iniciativa para los mercados de bonos asiáticos llamada AMBI. Este tema es importante porque el crecimiento evidenciado en los mercados de bonos asiáticos durante los últimos años es un punto de referencia válido para el desarrollo esperado en los mercados de riesgo en Latinoamérica. Además, porque la iniciativa conjunta de desarrollo de los mercados de bonos asiáticos AMBI muestra la importancia de impulsar iniciativas a nivel regional para superar las restricciones de tamaño que enfrentan los mercados de deuda privada locales. El doctor Ryoo es graduado de la Facultad de Artes de la Universidad de Corea con MBA de la Universidad de Oregon en los Estados Unidos. En su trayectoria profesional ha trabajado en las áreas de alianzas globales y de cumplimiento y compensación en la plaza bursátil de su país. Ha sido analista del mercado de acciones y tiene experiencia en el campo de las relaciones públicas. Bienvenido. Welcome.
Great introduction. My name is Hyun. I came from Korea Exchange in South Korea, and then first of all, I would like to thank you for the Colombian Stock Exchange for inviting me to this excellent conference, and then I'm also very glad to participate in this conference first time, and then I also feel very honored to give my presentation to this distinguished audience, including the experts and then professionals from all over the financial industry. Some of you may not. So I can explain as easy as I can. So here's the list of the outline topics. First, we're going to look at the historical background of the ABM establishment. And then I will explain a little bit about the organization and activities of ABMI. And then we will see how the Asian bond market have changed over the past decades. And then I will introduce overall evaluation of the ABMI performance and then Asian bond market. And then explain about the direction of the future of Asian bond market. Oh, sorry. So for the first topic, historical background of ABM establishment. For you to better understand, and we're going to look at the brief view of the historical, background of the ABM establishment. We need to go back to the Asian financial crisis, which occurred in late 1990s. And then we're going to review the underlying reasons for the crisis. So there is several reasons for the crisis. One of them is mismatch problems, mismatch in the currency, and the mismatch in the maturity of financing management of Asian companies. And the other one is dependence on bank loans and then dependence on foreign debts. Let me give you more detail about the key reasons for the crisis. First, the mismatch problems. One of the mismatch occurred in the term structure of the financing management of Asian companies, which means the Asian companies at the time borrowed money on short-term basis, but they lended money on long-term basis, so there was some mismatch in the maturity of the financing. And then the other mismatch issue occurred from the currency. When they are managing the debt and asset, So the Asian companies borrowed money in foreign currency, while they invested or lended that money in local denominated currency. So there was a currency mismatch problem. So all these mismatch problems, altogether got intertwined sometimes, so that making the Asian financial markets more, vulnerable and then susceptible to the external shocks. And another key reasons for the Asian financial crisis was the heavy reliance on bank loans and then foreign debt. So it is pretty simple why this was so, because at the time most Asian countries, they were adopting the banking-oriented, I'm sorry, which one is banking-oriented financial system. So they have no well-functioning capital market. For example, debt capital market, equity market also. So through the capital market, Asian companies couldn't get enough money for their investment activities. So accordingly, the bank loans or foreign debt became the common source and main source of financing. It doesn't work here. Okay, then besides the mismatch problems and dependence issue, there was another fundamental reasons for the crisis, which was the little or low awareness of the risk management function. In 1990s, most Asian countries, they haven't recognized the gravity of the risk management function, because there was actually no urgency or no need for them to maintain the rigorous internal risk management system, because the borrowed investment practice worked quite well before the outbreak of the Asian financial crisis. But once that the external conditions, like in foreign exchange market, turned unfavorable from the attack from the hedge funds, something like that. So all the risk factors got worked together and intertwined, make the situation worse. So and then Asian financial markets went into panic, and the crisis spread all over again suddenly. So in that situation, Asian countries had to do something, to cope with that situation, and then to prevent future possible crisis again. So ASEAN leaders, get together in Malaysia in 1997, and then they come to decision to make concerted effort and then extend the cooperation among ASEAN countries to prevent reoccurrence of the Asian financial crisis. So, by the proposal of the Malaysian Prime Minister at the time, Mahathir bin Mohamad, he suggested that ASEAN Summit Talk should be extended to the ASEAN Plus 3 Summit Talk, including new countries like China and Japan and Korea. ASEAN countries is 10 countries, like Malaysia and Indonesia, Thailand, and then Vietnam, like that, in Southeastern Asia countries. And then to support that ASEAN Plus 3 Summit talks, the ASEAN Plus Finance Ministers' annual meeting was also organized in 1999. And then a couple of years of running this meeting and then organization, Korea, in a bid to beef up the regional financial cooperation, proposed ABM idea first in 1992. And then the ABM idea was officially endorsed by the ASEAN Plus Finance Ministers meeting in 2003 in Manila. So that was pretty much of the Asian bond issue markets, how they activated and initiated. And now we're going to turn to the next topics, the organization and activities of the ABMI. Before we go into that, let's take a quick view of the goals of the ABMI. It's pretty simple and outright. As you can see, there is the ASEAN financial crisis was, driven by some, mismatch problems. So one of the goals was to reduce mismatch problems, mismatch in currency and mismatch in term structure. And then another one is to channel mobilize the local capital through the local capital market, and then channel that money into the local economic development. And third one is to harmonize, integrate the Asian financial market, especially the bond market. So through all these efforts, they wanted to develop an efficient and liquid Asian bond market to prevent the resurgence of Asian financial crisis again, and then promote regional economic growth. Okay, this is the showing that how the Asian financial cooperation among Asian prosperous countries has been made. As you can see at the top, there is ASEAN Prosperity Summit talk stands, and below that, the finance ministers meeting, and then central bank presidents meeting. And below that, there is also vice finance ministers meeting and the central bank vice president meeting. And then at the bottom level, there is three areas of cooperation, and ABMI is one of them. Inside the ABMI, there is 4 task forces working, which are working on the mission is like supply side of bond market and demand side of bond market, and regulatory issues and infrastructure. So the other 2 areas of cooperation involve activities, macroeconomic activities, and then the financial stability of the financial market. So the CMIM is Chiang Mai Initiative Multilateralization. You can see this as the ASEAN version of IMF. So its main objective is to provide the financial safety in case of the financial crisis in Asia. And the AMRO means that ASEAN Macroeconomic Research Office. The name is Research Office, but it's not actually a research office. They monitor and analyze the regional economic situation, and then suggest some, policy, measures, something like that. And then it also supports CMIM activities. So today's topic is the ABMI. I'm going to look into more details about ABMI. Here's the working structure of the ABMI. Inside the ABMI, there is a ABMI steering group, which its mission is manage and coordinate overall progress of the ABMI tasks. And then they also work between each task forces and then upper level organization like Vice Finance Ministers meeting and Financial Ministers meeting, something like that. And then each task force, they have their own missions. For example, Task Force 1 is co-chaired by China and Thailand. Their main mission is promoting the local currency-denominated bond issuance. So they work they establish credit guarantee and investment facility, and they work to promote bond issue for the infra financing for the low-developed countries like Cambodia and Laos, something like that. And then Task Force 2, this one is jointly led by Japan and Singapore. Their work is to increase the demand side of the local bond market. So they mostly work on the disseminating market information and holding seminars regularly. And they also maintains a website and then publish some, magazine. And then Task Force 3. This one is co-chaired by also Japan and Malaysia. Their main focus is improve the regulatory framework for bond issuance in Asian countries. So their main work is expanding cross-border transaction. And there is also, inside the Task Force 3, there's a forum called ASEAN Bond Market Forum. And Task Force 4 is chaired by Korea and Philippines. They're mostly working on improving market-related, bond market-related infrastructure. It's like a regional settlement intermediary, and then founding a Asian credit rating system, something like that. So let me tell you a little more about each task force, and then their achievements. Task Force 1, their main achievement is credit guarantee investment facility. This was, established in 2010 with initial capital of $700 million US. Its main objective was to help Asian companies to issue local currency bonds by providing credit guarantees for eligible companies. It was because that even companies with good investment grade, they have difficulties mobilizing capital through the local capital market because of the risk avoiding attitude of institutional investors in Asia. But so for the couple of several years, they provided credit guarantee for the Thailand company and Malaysian company, but credit guarantee performance is not so active. And Task Force 2, they developed a website called Asian Bonds Online, which is designed to provide comprehensive perspective of the Asian bond market. It was developed in cooperation with the ADB. It's called Asian Development Bank, and maintained by the ADB also. And it serves as a one-stop information center for the Asian bond market participant. And then it provides regional or specific market information about the government bond and corporate bonds, including like a benchmark interest rate, basic statistics about trading volumes and all of those things, and then some initiatives taken by each countries to develop their market. And Task Force 2 also published the Asia Bond Monitor, which is a quarterly online magazine which provides a compact, condensed information about Asian bond market. And Task Force 3, they established ABMF inside this is the forum inside the Task Force 3. They formed this forum to work out the more tangible results in developing Asian bond market and promote cross-border bond transaction. And in ABMF, about 150 experts from the government side and private side in Asian countries participating. So like regulatory bodies like SEC and exchanges and IB companies, all of them, and then the government policymakers, they are participating in that. And then this ABMF is held regularly, about like quarterly or, So Inside the ABMF, there is a sub-forum two sub-forum working on harmonization and standardized bond market, bond issue regulations and the practice. And then another sub-forum is working on harmonized clearing and settlement practice to promote cross-border transaction. And then major outcome of the ABMF is now the Asian Bonds Grocery Bond Market Guidebook, which was released in 2012. It is a very thick book. It explains everything about the bond markets of ASEAN plus 3 countries. And then they also now is discussing about the ASEAN plus 3 multi-currency bond issuance framework. I will talk about this in more details, but this is kind of an integrated market framework in Asian region. And Task Force 4, they are working on improving the bond market related infrastructure like settlement system and credit rating system. So some discussions and research works made on the feasibility study, but actually there hasn't been made any visible and significant progress in this area. But they're still working on many other, research projects. And then I will look at the third topics, the growth of the Asian bond markets. From now, we're going to see the trends and performance of Asian bond market by looking at some numbers and figures. As you can see, the overall bond market size of Asian bond market size has grown consistently and remarkably. And as of 2013, the total size of the Asian bond market reaches about $8 trillion. It is almost the 6 times the 2003 when was Asian ABMF was first launched. When it comparing to the 1995, it was 66 times bigger than that. And this chart tells you the how much percentage the local bond market takes up in the regional GDP production. So as you can see, it also grew constantly. As of 2013, it occupies about 80% of the regional GDP. And out of the share, the government bond market takes majority, about 56%. And then the corporate bond is half the size of the government bond market. And this one is tells you the Asian market's share out of the world market size. As you can see at the right here. This is percentage, right? So this is quite old statistic. And 2012 first quarter, it takes about 8.6% of the world bond market size, but it is pretty small than the comparing to the U.S. and Japan market, but it became a lot bigger than that of the 1996. In 1996, it was just 2.1%. But all this, the numbers was excluding Japan. Japan is very big bond market. And this slide tells you in different aspect of Asian bond market. This tells you the maturity structure of the government bonds, excluding Japan. There is a noticeable change in the maturity structure, as indicated by this two arrow line. The long-term bond increased, but medium-term bond decreased. So Asian bond market is kind of changing like somewhat like more advanced countries. And then this one shows relative weights of the major financing methods, like equity financing and then credit use and bond issuance. As you can see, the weight of the bond issue is stay constantly at around 20%, while the equity and the credit use is moving up and down. I think this is mostly from the stock market, the boom and bust. And this chart tells you just how the foreign currency denominated bond size in Asian countries, it also grows every year, but it's just about 1/10 of the local bond market size. As you can see, we always see the local bond market of Asia is $8 trillion, but it is $0.8 trillion. So it is 1/10 of the Asian total market size. And this line chart indicates how the foreign investors holding the government bonds of some of Asian countries. Foreign investors, they extending their share of the government bonds of Indonesia and Malaysia and Thailand. But while their holding ratio for like Korea and Japan is quite relatively low, below 10%. Maybe this is because the interest rate difference. Japan is very low, and Korea is also very low. But nowadays, it's about government bond interest rate is about 2.3%, 2.5%. So this has been I explained about the history of the Asian bond market initiative, and then some of the activities and performances and organizations, and then Asian bond markets overall trends. So let me tell you about the evaluations of the past decades performance of Asian ABMI. There is also a good area and not good area. Well-performed area includes like ABMI's contribution to the developing local bond market. International organizations like IMF and BIS, they also agree with the view that thanks to the ABMI activities, Asian financial market stayed calm, in the midst of the financial crisis in 2008. And they're also good at addressing the maturity mismatch problem. So there are many yield curves is generated at various terms of maturity. The longest maturity is about 30 years. On the other hand, there is not good performance areas, such like addressing currency mismatch issues. And there is still a lack of, local currency is not used widely because of the strict regulations on cross-border trades. And then utilization of Asian savings for the Asian economic development. Most Asian investments made on the U.S. or European market. And then little cross-border investment due to still strict regulatory barriers. And then in the area of harmonization and integration of the Asian bond market, it's still very low. And also, there have been many obstacles and limitations in ABMI working process. For example, there was so many differences in the economic situations among the ASEAN plus 3 countries, and regulatory system, and market infrastructure, and culture, and so on. And too high goals, they was from the beginning, the ABMI set, too ambitious goals, such like, integrate the ASEAN bond market. And there was also the defensive and then risk-avoiding, behavior of the government bodies of each countries. And there was also, invisible, struggle inside the ABMI to take the leadership of the organization. So all these, obstacles, created different awareness and preparation about ABMI goals among the countries, and also led to the difficulties and delay in making unified decisions and then producing tangible outputs. But anyway, despite such structural limitations, the ABMI continued to make efforts to develop Asian market, develop bond market. So at the first stage, they focused to develop local bond market, like a government bond market and corporate bond market. And in the second phase, their effort was centered on promoting the cross-border bond issue. But still, while they maintaining their original, regulatory system and then other, market infrastructure. But now and for the future, the ABMI is looking to establish a more homogeneous Asian bond market on a more homogeneous regulatory basis. So that kind of idea is expressed now in the AMBI, a standardized bond issuance framework. Let me tell you more details about AMBIF. AMBIF is in short, is a standardized, cross-border bond issuance market especially for the professional investors, not individual investors. These diagrams, suggest that the conceptual, structure of the AMBIF. The basic AMBIF is basic idea is that each, the countries like Japan, Singapore, Korea, and Hong Kong, they were required to, agree to, AMBI framework comprising these, components, and then they established mutual or multilateral recognition about counterparties, markets regulation. And then they should establish an information sharing channel or platform using the IT technology for the the information sharing and then cooperation for the market operation and regulation. So these are the core AMBI institutional components. So in AMBI market, professional investors only participate. Individual investors are not permitted because this is cross-border market. So individuals, they don't have any experience in investing in foreign bonds, something like that. And then bonds should be made on private placement. So they don't require, the regulator doesn't require full scale of disclosure document. Only simple, easy disclosure requirement is necessary. And only straight bond should be issued because bond with so many conditions, it's hard to control and manage the market. And then the bond can be issued in local currency or global currency, like dollars and euros and yens. And then also there should be multilateral or bilateral recognition among the regulators. So let's see, Japan, Hong Kong, and Singapore, Korea can be operated in a single market if they agree to this, core framework of the AMBI scheme, AMBI framework, and then they establish, recognition, agreement between the regulators, and then they can be like a single market. This is a simplified an example how the AMBIF can work. Let's see, a company which wants to issue bonds, country A and country B and country C, then the company only needs to submit the application document in country A. And the country A regulators or market operator, they review the documents and then they can approve or disapprove that application. If they approve that application, they send that information and documents to the country B and country C through the established information sharing channel or IP and platform. And then country B and country C's regulator, they don't review the application document on a full scale, just take a quick view and then they decide if there is any significant problems, they approve that application document. And then the company can go for the bond issue in country A and country B and C. So this framework should to be very efficiently working. The close cooperation between the market regulators is necessary. So they need to make like a MOU among regulators, something like that. This has been the pretty short and pretty much of my presentation about the ABMI. So let me conclude this my presentation by summarizing this. For the summary, the crisis-stricken Asian nations took initiative to strengthen joint cooperation following the Asian financial countries in the 1990s. And then they launched ABMI initiative in 2003 and made efforts to develop regional bond markets and contributed to the stabilization of Asian financial markets. And now ABMI is looking to establish ASEAN Plus standard bond issuing market called AMBIF in the years to come. We have ABMF forum in last week, and they're going to release the final report of the AMBIF scheme. So, and then some of the countries in ASEAN plus 3 nations, they're working on establishing the mutual agreement about the AMBI scheme. So in this year or then tomorrow, next year, there should be a pilot bond issuance. And for the implications from the ABMI experience, I can say that first we need to start with a small project or a pilot project. In the ABMI case, they started, two big goals, such as the integrated overall market of Asian countries. But it was too high. And then run the project or the meeting on a more mandatory basis to boost the responsibility of the participant, and then in case of ABMI, it was managed on a voluntary basis. So it took quite a long time for the ABMI countries to reach a common decision. So it was not so effective. And then prepare the concrete action plans. ABMI was actually initiated in 2003, but now it's 2014. It took about a decade to reach, visible, outcomes, but still not impressive outcome. So they just talk too much and no action, actually. And lastly, I think this is most important. Share the common visions or goals, and then promote mutual interest. Inside the ABMI, there was too many countries participating with so different spectrums of, from the economic view or social view. So there was so many conflict of interest and struggles for leadership in taking the leadership in the organization. So it was difficult to manage the such interest. So this has been the pretty much of my presentation about ABMI. I think it's too short for the time, but I think I wish my presentation will give you a little bit help to understand what's been happening in the Asian bond market and what will be happening in the Asian bond market. And then I also hope that this would be any real hints for the Colombian the Colombian financial market development. And I will conclude my presentation as this one. Thank you, and then thank you for your continued attention and then patience. Thank you.